Hello guys, welcome to today's video, and in this video we are going to be looking at adjustments. But before we get to that, let's look at the difference between smart objects and rasters. So we'll look at what they are, then we'll get to the differences between the both of them. So let's start by talking about smart objects. So the first thing we want to do here is to create a new document quickly. So this is an A4 landscape document, and I'll click create. And I've shown you guys how do you bring in photos to Photoshop. Just go to where you have the photo on your PC, then you drag and drop the photo like this, okay? And you can accept. So we have brought in this particular photo to Photoshop, and notice Photoshop adds this particular photo in a new layer, right? And let's look at this layer quickly. So this layer, we have this thumbnail here. Then if you look on the bottom right of the thumbnail, we have a little document icon there, right? This document icon here, right? Okay, so let's pay attention to that. Whenever I say document that has this little document icon here, that particular layer is a smart object. Okay, now let me just click show you guys a little difference here. If I come to shape and draw a shape here like this, notice the shape here has something else. It has a little box, not this document icon. So a shape is not a smart object. Okay, this is a difference. So this one has a document icon, while this one just has a little box here, which for shapes, when you double click on it, you can change your color. Okay, but for smart objects, when you double click on it, it opens up this image on a brand new Photoshop tab. So let's double click on this little icon here. So we now see Photoshop opens up the image on a brand new tab here. So this original document here, this is it here, right? Then Photoshop has opened this up on a brand new document like this. Okay, let's just close this up back like that. So this is a smart object. Now let's look at rasters. So how do we bring in a photo as a raster in Photoshop? Very simple. So the only reason why Photoshop brought in this photo here as a raster, as a smart object rather, is because we already had a document existing. Then we now dragged and dropped it here. So Photoshop brought in this particular photo here and as a smart object. So let's now bring in this same image but as a raster. So what we do is this: we want to drag and drop the image, and instead of dropping on this our canvas space here, right, let's drop somewhere at the top here. Okay, so come here, click and drag and point at the top here. Allow. So what we have done is this: we have just opened up a picture in Photoshop. Okay, another way you can get that is to go to File, go to Open, right? Look for what's the image you want to open in Photoshop. So in my case, let me look for this image here. Okay, double click on it, and you see what has happened, right? It has opened up this image in Photoshop. And if you look here, the background layer is the image itself. And now look at this thumbnail here. You notice that it does not have that little document icon there, right? Does that make sense? So a raster, when you bring in an image as a raster, you would have no document icon here. But in this other case here, whenever you bring in an image in an already existing document, it's going to bring in that image as a smart object. So if I come to this one here and now drag and drop an image to this already existing document, Photoshop is going to bring it in as a smart object like this. Do you see? So we have this one and this one. So the only reason why this one here was brought in as a raster is because we just opened it up directly in Photoshop, and I've shown you two ways to do that. You can go to File and take Open, or you can just drag and drop an image up here, not in a canvas. So when you drag and drop up here, Photoshop creates a new document with that picture, and it sets the background layer to be the picture, and it does that and brings it in as a raster. Okay, so let's quickly close all of these things up and explain the differences between rasters and smart objects. So here we are, right? We have this first one here, right? Let's bring in this picture again. So let's just duplicate this by pressing Ctrl J on the keyboard. So we have two copies now like this. We can actually convert a smart object to a raster. So let me just rename these things, or call this smart object like this, and the next one I'll call it raster like that. So I'm just renaming these two layers. So these are raster, these are smart object. Okay, so let's convert this one here to a raster image. So how do you convert this to a raster image? Right click on the layer there and look for convert to raster, or click rasterize layer. Okay, this is it here. So you look for rasterize layer. So click on rasterize and it has done that for us. So let's look here now. The document icon is gone. Okay, so this image now is a raster. So again, a smart object is any layer here that has this document icon at the bottom here, right? So this particular layer here, which is this image here, is a raster because it does not have that little icon there. So let's see what rasters, let's look at the advantages or the differences between the rasters and vec and smart objects. So difference between rasters and smart objects. Okay, the first thing is, let's get to this first image. Let's just zoom into the frame here. You can really see this a high quality image of a banana, right? And if you look here as well, so it's basically the same thing here. Now with so let's just select the two layers here like this, right? And let's transform them. So let's drop their sizes. So drop the size. So we have something like this, then accept like that, right? So Photoshop is doing its job. Okay, so after that has been done, let's make them big back. So make them big and that, then accept. Now I'm sure you see the difference. The raster, look at this smart object here, this one here. It maintains its quality, but look at this raster here, it has lost its quality. It's now looking somehow blurred, right? Let's do that again. So let's drop the size again, stem around, drop, it's very small, accept, then make them big like that and accept. So this time around it's very clear. Now the question is this: why are these layers behaving like this? So you notice that this raster image here has lost all of its quality. The reason why it's showing like this is because it has lost all of its quality, but the smart object remains intact. Okay, let's explain why it has lost all of its quality. Now with raster images, right, when you drop their size like this, so let's say if the size of this image was, let's say 10,000 pixels by 10,000 pixels, and you drop the size, so let's say 5 pixels by 5 pixels, and you click on accept. So what Photoshop does is it resizes this image from 10,000 by 10,000 pixels to just 5 pixels by 5,000, 5 pixels by 5 pixels. That's an example I'm giving, right? And when you try now to make a 5 pixel by 5 pixel image big again, it's going to have a very low quality like this. That's why you have this low quality image here. But now with a smart object, whenever something's a smart object, it's like a container. A smart object is just like a container, right? That preserves or that stores, let's see, objects or elements. So in our case here, I showed you guys that when you double click on this icon here, you will now see this picture here open up on a new tab. So this smart object here is a container that's holding this picture here. Okay, so even if I drop the size of this container like that and close, Photoshop still remembers the original size of this picture here, because if I double click here, I'll still find the picture here with original size. If you look down here, you're going to see its original size like this down here, right? So in a nutshell, it's important to work with smart objects when you'll be doing things like transformation and stuff like that, because you might drop the size of a picture like this, then you might say, no, I don't want this, I don't want that picture too small, I want to increase in size, and you increase it back without having a loss of quality. So when you transform smart objects, you maintain the quality, whether you scale it down or up. But with rasters, it's a totally different thing. When you drop the size of a raster image like that and you accept, Photoshop resizes the image. And when you try to scale up an image with a low resolution, basically a small size, it's going to look very funny. So something like this. So this is the same image we have used here, but see how different it looks now, only because this one was a raster. Okay, and I'm going to explain, we'll look at other differences between smart objects and rasters shortly, still in this video, when I start showing you guys adjustments. I'm sure that makes sense to everybody. Alright, so again, smart objects have this little icon thing down here, while rasters are just plain like this. They don't have that little document icon there. Alright, so I'm going to delete this guy here, And let's be left with this banana here, like this smart object here. So what are adjustments? Okay, let's just see how to bring in adjustments in Photoshop. So we have this particular image here, right? So make sure you have the layer selected and notice that it's a smart object here. Okay, so go to image, then go down to adjustments like that. So we have all of our adjustments here in Photoshop. Okay, brightness, levels, and the other ones down. So let's select the very first one, brightness and contrast. Okay, so we have this little window that's popped up, and we can basically increase the brightness of that particular picture or that particular layer here, right? Which is a picture in our case here. Can increase the brightness. In case you're not seeing the changes, make sure you have this preview here turned on. Okay, so you can increase the brightness like that, which is just basically you making the image lighter or making the image darker. So you're increasing the lightness of the image, and like this I'm dropping the image to make it a bit darker, right? Then you can also play around with the contrast. Let me take this back to 0, or let's say like something like 12 or 17. Then the contrast, what the contrast does here is that when you take the contrast up, it basically bumps up the darker pixels and the brighter pixels. So basically the shadows and the highlights in your image to make the image pop a little bit. So if I bring this brightness back to 0, right, and I take this contrast back to 0 like that, so just type here 0. So this is what we have right now. If I take the contrast a little bit up, see how our image has popped. So if I turn this off, is it before, is it after? Before, after. So Photoshop, when you increase your contrast basically increases the it kind of increases the value of the darker pixels and the brighter pixels to make the image kind of pop. Okay, like that. And if I take OK, I now have something like this. So this is the new look of my stuff. And notice something down here. Let's bring down here. So this is the layer here, right? We've added this adjustment, which is a brightness and contrast adjustment to this particular layer here. So notice that to this layer is attached what we call a smart filter. I now see what I've added is a brightness and contrast adjustment. Now, for those who are not seeing it, you have a drop down here like mine here. Just click on the drop down here, and you should be able to see it like this. Okay. Now, the only reason you can see this thing here is because this layer here is a smart object. So if I come here to this brightness and contrast, I can come to this toggle icon and turn it off. Okay. Or I can come to this global one, this smart filter here, and turn it off like that. Okay. If I want to edit this, I can double click here. I can change the values as well, right? So I double click on the brightness and contrast text here, double click. You can adjust that to what you want. Okay, click OK. If you want to add another one, you can come back to image, go to adjustment, and let's say we want to try, let's say the next one here, hue and saturation. You can click on it, and we can play around with the hue and saturation sliders. Okay, you can play around with things like this, right? And let's just take OK, for example here, take OK like this. So you notice that that particular hue and saturation has been added here as well. So let's add another one. So I'm just basically showing how to add adjustments. So if I take color lookup, for example, and I take let's say fog light, right? So we have this. If I take OK, so you notice that we have added 3 adjustments to this single image here, right? To this single layer here, and all of the adjustments are attached to the layer here. Do you see? It's not like these adjustments are added in different layers. No, they are all attached to this particular layer here. And you can turn them off individually. Like if I turn off this lookup, this is how it looks like. If I turn off the hue and saturation, this is how it looks like now. If I turn off brightness, that's how it looks like. Or I can decide to turn off everything by just clicking on this global smart filter here. Turn off everything. Makes sense? So let me just delete this. So how do I delete this particular smart filter? I can just click and drag to the recycle bin like that. So I've deleted all of that. So now this is for a smart object. Okay, so if I duplicate this image here and quickly convert it to a raster by right clicking on it and take rasterize layer like that and just rename it to raster. So this is a raster layer now. So if I go to adjustments, image adjustment, and let's say I add something like brightness and contrast, if I increase the values like that and I take OK, notice that we don't see any smart filter attached to this layer, right? But if we came to the smart object here and increased and added an adjustment, let's say let's add brightness and contrast, something like this. So notice for the smart object we have this the adjustment added or attached to the layer of the image itself. But for rasters, they don't get attached. Once you just add an adjustment and apply, it applies, but you don't have options to change or to modify your adjustments. So that's the second thing with working with rasters. So with rasters, number one, when you scale them down, Photoshop forgets about the original size and it keeps that low resolution picture. And when you try to increase its size, Photoshop just gives you a very low resolution kind of thing, right? So I've dropped the size and I increase it now. See how low quality it looks like. Okay. Then the second thing is with adjustments. When you add an adjustment, so if I come here and take, let's say, adjustment, I take black and white, for example, I take OK. That's all. I don't see anything here so what if I want to modify this adjustment here? You cannot do it because it's a raster. Okay. But with smart objects here, you can scale them down as much as you want to scale them down. Scale this down as much as I want to scale it down. Then if I change my mind, okay, I can scale it back up, and Photoshop is going to remember its original resolution. Okay. And why does Photoshop remember, or how does Photoshop remember its original resolution? Because it's a smart object, and a smart object is a container. How do you know that? If you double click on this document icon here, double click, Photoshop opens up that container for you to see what's in the container, which is what? This image here. It opens it up in a different tab. You see that here, right? Exactly. So it opens it up here, and you can also set this a raster. So we get the image which is normally a raster, and Photoshop converts it to a smart object. That's what you see here. So this is a smart object here. We open it up, you now see the normal raster image here itself. Okay. So a smart object is a container, and with that container, Photoshop can remember a lot of things about the image. Like now, we have added a smart filter, or I've added an adjustment to this layer here, to this smart object layer here. And Photoshop remembers the adjustments we've added because this particular layer here is a smart object and it's a container. So in that container, Photoshop stores the information there so they can come and remember. You can remember what all of the changes that had been applied to that particular layer. Makes sense? Okay, so I'll delete this again and let's bring in a different image. So let's bring in this one and accept that. So I'm sure you guys are okay with the concept of smart objects and raster. So let me just say this for the last time. For a smart object always has this icon here like this, and rasters do not have these icons. With smart objects, when you add things like, let's say, an adjustment, let's take any one, let's say black and color balance. Let's just play around with the colors here. So let's take away, okay, stuff like this. You can always adjust it here. If you add another one, let's say something like brightness and contrast. Let's turn down the contrast like that. It has been added here. If I add another one, let's say hue and saturation, I take it saturation a little bit. We have the third one here. So you can see all of these adjustments added to this smart filter, which is attached to our smart object here. Okay. The reason why this is called a smart filter is because this is our smart object here. Right. And this white thing you see is a mask. So if you click on it and you take your brush, be on the keyboard and set it to black, you can brush away. What can I brush away? Portions that you don't want these adjustments to reflect on. So if I brush here, it takes away all of these adjustments that I've added here from this layer here. So it just hides them like that. And if I want to bring it back, take white and brush them in back like that. Makes sense, right? Okay, perfect. So let me just reset this. So I'll just go back here to my history and I'll go to the points where I brought in that stuff. Okay, so this is why I brought it in. Okay, perfect. So let me rename this layer to sky like this. Now, there are so many adjustments here. Okay, there are so many of them here, but I would want us to use just one for now. So your assignment is to explore these different adjustments here and see what they do. Okay, so if I take hue and saturation, so this is the one I want us to work with in this video. So your assignment again, explore the different adjustment layers. You can watch videos on that, different adjustments in Photoshop. Sorry, not adjustment layers, adjustments in Photoshop. I'll soon be talking about adjustment layers. Okay, so we have this here. We can play around with the hue, which is just basically another name for colors. Okay, or just playing around the color values. The next one is a saturation, which is basically how much color do you want. So if you take the saturation way down like this, you're saying you want no color in your image. If I take the saturation up, you're saying you want the image to have a lot of color, so you're increasing the saturation. And now you see how the colors are bleeding out, right? The saturation here is too much. Then you can play around with the lightness and the darkness. So you want more lights in on your image, and the more light you add, the whiter it becomes. If you drop it, you will say you want it to be a little bit dark, stuff like that, right? And you can always preview here on this preview icon. So now you can see your changes live as you're doing them. Okay, then you click OK, and as usual, it's added here to this particular layer like this. Do you see that? So it's the same thing. You can do the same thing for black and white. So let me just delete this quickly. You can just come to black and white here. So let me delete this layer and bring in a picture of a guy. So this is our guy here. Where you see. I thought he should be here. Okay, it's not here. Let me just bring in this guy here. Like that. I can do black and white. So you go to adjustments, select black and white like that. You now have a black and white image, right? And you can play around. You can adjust these values. So this particular channels here, these little sliders here, like red, it's saying that, okay, normally this image here, we have areas that are kind of red, like skin tones always have red in it. So you can play around with, okay, for these skin tones, you want to make them lighter. So the red pixels in the image, you want to make them lighter, or do you want to make them darker? For the yellow pixels in the image, you want to make them darker, you want to make them lighter. For the green pixels in the image, you want to make them darker or brighter. So that's just what the slider does here for black and white. So like now I'm making the cyans in the image kind of brighter, and you can see it's suits being affected. If I make it darker, you have something like this. Okay. So this is one way to enrich your black and white. Instead of just having the default, you can play around with these sliders to make it rich. Okay. Alright, you can take OK. And as usual, it's going to print that and attach it to this layer here. Now we are quickly going to bump into an issue here. So what if we want to, let me just bring in some other images here. Bring in another one like this. Okay. Now I have these other 3 images here. I'm just sending it below this one here, like this. So I'll drop the size of this one. Accept. Then I'll drop the size of this one. Drop the size. So let's say we have this here. Then we have now this one and this one working like this. So I'll apply black and white to this layer here. So what if I want to apply black and white to these other layers here? So it doesn't mean I'll still have to go to my image menu here, adjustment, and take black and white. Then if I want to add black and white to this other one here, do I still have to go up here and do that and take black and white? So you'll see you're repeating this thing over and over and over and over. What if there was a way you can apply one adjustment to several images? Yes, there is a way. So this leads us to what we call adjustment layers. So initially, right, I told you guys that adjustments are attached to the layer of that particular image. Like now we have this image here, and we added the black and white adjustment to it, and the adjustment is added, it's attached to the layer. Okay, it's not a separate layer on its own. But now we can, let me just delete this adjustment here. We can actually bring in an adjustment as a layer, okay, by coming down here to this icon here, this adjustment layer icon down here, the one we used to create our solid color layer in our previous videos. So I don't want this, so I'll delete this. Just come down here, and all of these things here are what we call adjustment layers. So if you look down here, you see that these things here are the same as what we have on the image, then adjustments here. Do you see? Basically the same thing. But the difference between these two is that with this one here, when you click here and let's select hue. Okay, let's just take black and white for now. Black and white, like that. So you see it's the same thing, but the difference now is that we have a new layer added above this layer. Do you see? So this was called an adjustment layer. Okay, the layer has been added above this layer. And now if I bring in other images here, like let's say I bring in this lady, let's just drop her a little bit. Let's bring in another one. I bring in this guy here, drop that a little bit. Okay, like this, right? Now, where is our adjustment layer? This is it here, right? You can turn it off and on. So when you turn it off, it's no longer affecting this. So what happens is this: whenever you have an adjustment layer like this, right, it affects all of the layers below it. So now if I take this layer of this lady here, below this adjustment layer here, this lady will automatically become black and white. So if I click here and drag below, we now see that particular adjustment is affecting this lady, right? So in case you no longer see your, let's say on this on your adjustment layer, and you no longer see the options to change the values, right? Just double click on this thumbnail here, double click on it, and you have a properties panel which pop up, right? Or you can just go to your Windows and take properties while you have this layer selected. What I mean is this: so you can just have the layer selected and go to Windows and take properties like that, and you have this, and you can play around with these values like this. So you see it's affecting all the layers below it like that. Do you see? Affecting every layer below it like that. Okay, so if I want this other layer here to be involved, just drag it down like that. Makes sense, right? Perfect. Now there are other times that you will still want to use an adjustment layer, but you want it to affect just one layer. So let's say we have this design like this, right? You want these layers to be below here, these two layers to be below, but you don't want this adjustment layer to affect them. You want it to affect just this picture here, this one. So how are you going to get that done? Simple. You create a clipping mask. So on this adjustment layer here, right, make sure it's directly above what you want it to affect only. Then right click on the adjustment layer and go to create clipping mask like that. So this adjustment layer is being clipped to this layer here, just this one here. So it's affecting only this one, even though we have other layers below it. I'm sure that makes sense to everybody, right? So a quick recap is, let's just do a quick recap. So I'll delete everything and let's just do a quick recap. So what have I said so far? The first thing is you can bring in an image to Photoshop like this, right? And you can apply some adjustments to it, play around with the colors and stuff like that. How do you get that done? Come up here to adjustments, to image, then go to adjustments, and you can bring in any adjustment of your choice here. For our case, we'll take hue and saturation. Okay, now we can play around with the hue and saturation. So I'll just want to drop the saturation slightly like that. Okay, and I take okay. Because I came up here and added the adjustment from up here, Photoshop attaches the adjustment to the layer I had selected when going there, right? Which is this one here. Okay, and the adjustment affects just this layer here. What if I wanted to apply that same adjustment to, let's say, 4 other layers? Then bring this in. So what if I want these other images here to have the same adjustment? Would I have to go up there and let me just draw the size of this quickly? So would I have to go up there and create the same thing for all of these? Yes, I can do that, but it's not really a productive way. Okay, so that's where our adjustment layers come in, where you create an adjustment as a layer, and every other layer under it is going to be affected by that adjustment. So what I'm saying is this. So let me quickly delete this adjustment we have here. So this layer no longer has an adjustment. So I'm going to come down here to this adjustment layer icon down here, click on it, and I'll select any adjustment of my choice. So in this case, I want to take the hue and saturation adjustment layer like this. And this here, it creates an adjustment layer. And we have two thumbnails, this one here and this one. What's this thing again? Remember, our mask. Okay, this is a mask here. You can decide to delete the mask if you want to. Click delete. And how do you create an empty mask? Simple. Select layer and click on the mask icon here, and it's back like that. Okay, so we have this adjustment layer here. So how do you bring up the properties? Just click on this thumbnail here twice and you have this, so you can play around with this value here, and it affects all of the layers below the adjustment layer. Okay, like that. Try this makes sense for everybody. Okay, so how do you make this adjustment layer here affect just a single layer, just a layer that's directly below it, if you don't want to move these other ones up here? Because sometimes when you're doing your designs, you want to have some layers below like this. Okay, but you want your adjustment layer to affect just a single layer. So how do you get that done? Simple. You just place the adjustment layer directly above whatever you want it to affect. Then right click on the adjustment layer and create clipping mask. As simple as that. So the adjustment layer is now affecting just this layer, just the layer directly below it. I'm sure that makes sense to everybody. Okay, yes, I think it does. So with that said, let's just start creating stuff. So I'll delete these things here, and let's now apply adjustments to what we have done so far. So let's bring in this banana here. So this is, okay, I'll delete this as well. Delete this as well. So let's bring in this banana here. So this banana is already ripe, right? Now the question is, how do I change the color of this banana? Okay, so let me just make this a little bit bigger than this. What if I just make it to fill up the entire screen? The entire canvas rather. Okay, like that. Okay, so we have something like this. How do I change the color of this banana? Okay, the first thing we want to do is, okay, let's just start the very simple and rough way. Come to your adjustment layer icon here, click on it, and you guys will notice that I'll hardly be using these adjustments from up here, because I always want to have my adjustments as different layers so that I can have full control over them. Okay, so I'll click on this adjustment layer icon down here, and I'll take hue and saturation like that. Now when I play around with these values, you see it's changing like that. Okay, so I want to make this banana green, like I want to have a green banana here. Now notice something, this hue here, right, when it changes, it basically changes the colors. If I point on, let's say, this blue here, it mixes the color in some way till I have this green here. Notice it's not green we have on this slider here, but it's showing green here. Okay, now if you want to have control of the exact color you're selecting, click on colorize here, and Photoshop does some kind of blending, which we'll talk about. Click on it, and if you start dragging like this, let's take up the hue a little bit like that. If you start dragging, notice that it's changing the image here to meet up with what the color we have selected here. So that it's changing the entire image to meet up with this color here, and it's blending it, right? There's a blend mode that's been applied here. So if I take this to blue, you now see we have blues here. If I take this to purple, we have purples. If I take this to red, because we have this colorized turned on. If I turn off colorize, you can already tell that this is going to give you can already tell what color your hue slider will give you, because now I'm pointing on, let's say, red, but this is not red, it is blue. Okay, it's mixing it in a different way. So let's click on colorize and let's take this to green. So I want the banana to be green like that. Let's say like this. You can play around with the saturation as well. How much green do you want? You don't want so much for it to look fake. You don't want too little. And there's somewhere around there. You can also play with the brightness and with the lightness and darkness, right? Let's say something like this. Let's turn down this stuff like that. Okay, so I think I like this, but now it's affecting the entire image, right? I don't want it to affect the entire image. I want it to affect, so you can turn off and on the adjustment layer like that, right? I want this to affect just this banana. So what can we do here? Very simple. We can create an adjustment. We can create a mask, right? Then we can rather brush out the layers the portions we don't want. Sorry about that. We can brush out the portions we don't want. So you can click on this mask here, get your brush tool, right? Set it to what? Black. Then you can start brushing out like that. Do you see? You can brush out the portions you do not want. So you can zoom in and do the stuff. I'm not going to zoom in because I'm going to show you a better way to change the color of objects. Okay. So I'll just brush these like this. And in case you accidentally brush on what you're not supposed to brush on, what do you take? Yes, you take white and brush that back in. Like now I've brushed away the some portions I'm not supposed to brush out. So I just take white on my keyboard. So I take white like this. And I'm still using the brush. So I'm brushing on this mask here. I have this mask here selected. Not this mask here. If you have this selected, you have this icon here. So make sure you have the mask selected. And I'm hiding the adjustment. That's what I'm doing. I'm just hiding the adjustment like that. Okay. Like that. So you can toggle between black and white. White is to reveal, black is to hide. Okay. And you always make sure that your flow here is set up to 100 in this case. Like this. Okay, yeah, something like this. So I'll just leave this like this because I really don't have time to make this better for now, since I'm going to show you guys a better way. So this one is a very time-consuming method to change the color of a particular portion of an image. So let me show you a better way to get that done. So let's delete the adjustment layer here. So the first thing to do is to select the areas you want to add or you want to change the color. So in this case, I want to change the color of this banana. So I'll get my quick selection tool and I'll take select subject, and I think Photoshop should select the banana for me. Perfect, job like this. So with this selection active, right? How do I change the color? While this selection is active, just go to adjustment layer and create a new adjustment layer. Take hue and saturation. So Photoshop creates a new adjustment layer, and I look at something here. It creates a mask on that adjustment layer using the selection you had here. So let's just go back, Ctrl Z. We have the selection here, right? Normally, if you create an adjustment layer, let's just do something like this. It comes with an empty mask. Do you see? The mask is all white. But if I come here like this, let's say we have this as selection. I've just gone back in time, Ctrl Z. We have the selection here. When you create an adjustment layer with a selection active, Photoshop is going to create an adjustment and it's going to create that mask at once. So it's going to have just the portions of the selection you had active visible in the mask. That's why you see it in white, right? Then you can now come here to your settings, to your properties of the adjustment layer here. Go to colorize, then take it to green like this. Maybe increase the saturation a little bit. Right, let's see. Okay, I think we should increase saturation again. So something we have something like, I think this should decrease a bit. So you have something like this. Yeah, something like this should make sense. Yes, you have something like this. Okay, so this is the before, this is the after. Right, so we have an adjustment layer and we have a mask on the adjustment layer that is limited just to that particular portion we have selected. Right, and you can decide to refine this by clicking on the mask, get your brush tool and take away the color from this portion here. Black on your, just take black and take away this color from here if you want to. Okay, that's if you want to. But I think, yeah, I think this makes sense to everybody. Okay, so let's do another example. So I'll bring in another image. I'll delete everything here. Let's bring in, there's one image I'm looking for. I'm not saying. Just give me 1 minute. Let me get it. Okay, yes, the image is here. So let's bring in this guy. Drag and drop this guy. So how do we change the color of this guy's shirt? Very straightforward. First thing we need to do is to select his shirt, right? And there are so many ways you can get his shirt selected. If you do select subject, it's not really going to help you out that much. It can help you out, but it's not really going to help you out that much because it's going to select the guy instead, not just his dress, right? So it's going to work. We're going to have something like this. So I'll turn that off. And what I can do is this. Okay, let me just show you guys this. So let's go back. So if we have this guy selected like this, right? And we create an adjustment layer from him, hue and saturation. Okay, let's say we want to change the color of the dress to, so I've clicked on colorize. Let's say we want to change the color of the dress to, let's say, green. and take up the hue like that. I think that here is too much. Okay, let's try. Yes, green. Let's take green for now. What version of green? It's her. Okay, let's go with this for now. Then, so we now click on the mask here, get our brush tool, and we can start brushing on his face with black to hide the adjustment from his face like that. Okay, now you guys should zoom in to get something perfectly done. Again, I'm not going to bother myself about doing this because I'm going to show you guys a better method. Since I already said that selecting the guy entirely to create this stuff would be stressful, so I'm not going to go through all of that stress. You can do something like this and take your time and refine the selection. Okay, like this. If you accidentally brush up something, just zoom in and get the brush to switch the colors, and you bring it back in. Like that, I can switch the brush back to white and brush this back in like that. Okay, so let me show you how to get this stuff done, the better way to get this done. So I've just deleted my adjustment layer, and to do a perfect selection, you come here, get any of your selection tools. So in this case here, I'll just use my let's see, my magical or magnetic lasso tool. Click there and just drag around the dress like that. Like this. Okay. Like this. I'll come down like this. So you see what I'm doing, right? Just drag around. So I want to have just the dress selected. So it's key to have your selection perfectly done before you apply your adjustments whenever you want to change the color of something. Okay, like that. And then just keep going. So again, as you're just dragging this thing along, so just click and allow that you start moving on the path. And if you get to a place you want to add an anchor point, you can click the ones and it adds the point for you. And I've gone back to the end and you see a little circle there, so I click. And I have a selection of just the dress. Now, if I zoom in, notice the selection is kind of rough, so I can refine this. I can maybe get, let's see, I have polygon lasso to and come here. So to add this selection, right, you can either click on this icon up here, this one here, or you can hold Shift on your keyboard. Hold Shift, I'll just click and drag. I want to add this selection, this portion that's unselected. And that. So you see I've added that selection to be part of it. If I want to remove this one, I hold up Alt on my keyboard, Option on the Mac. Like that. So same thing here. But I think I'll allow this one because I can brush this one later on. Like that. So I think this is good now. So I can now create my adjustment layer from this selection. So I'll come here, click here, go to hue and saturation. So I have this, so I can colorize. And notice the mask that's been created here. See the mask? Okay. And I can change the color of the dress. As simple as that. Right. So I think I like this green. So you can increase the saturation if you want to. I'll play around the lightness, right? Take it too much, it's going to be too hard. So just look for a comfortable or a sweet spot, right? So you can change it to any color you want. So if I want, let's say red. Then let's zoom in now and let's refine this stuff here. So with our mask again, click on the mask, get your brush tool, be on the keyboard. And so now we want to add this part, so we'll get white to add, right? Just brush with white. again, remember to always zoom in, right, to refine your selection. In case you brush too much, take black on the keyboard. Take black, sorry, and just brush that away. I want to add this part. Let's go to the neck and see. Okay, like here, you see the spots here, so you want to add. So add this. Add this. And that. We want to add this here. Yeah, and you can spend your time refining your mask like that. So I think this looks pretty clean, right? So you can change the color of this dress to any color you want. So for those who sell clothes, right? Here you go, you're all gone. So you can change this color to any color you have available in your available for sale, right? And that's how you get stuff like this done. Okay. All right. Yeah, and let's see. So let's do another one. So if I drag this gun and drop here, accept. Now let me just turn him off for now. So I can even decide to just clip this to this guy here so that I don't forget. And I can even decide to create a group here, right? And I can call it man1, for example. And I can even open up the group. So let's bring 10 of this group and let's have this guy here like this, right? So for this guy, it's very simple. Let's change the color of his cap, right? So I'm going to zoom in. So I'll get my quick selection tool and I'll click once on his cap and it should select his cap for me. Perfect, good selection. And I'll create an adjustment layer. So what I've done, if I was too fast, I've gotten this quick selection tool from here, this one in the middle. I just click on his cap like that and Photoshop does the job for me. So I'll create an adjustment layer, hue and saturation adjustment layer, click colorize, then that's it. As simple as that. You always need to zoom in and perfect this stuff. Do you see? It's kind of very funny at the corners here. So you might want to perfect it with your brush tool. Okay. Like that. And you can play around with the colors, whatever color you want. And that's the very basics for adjustments in Photoshop. So a recap, when you come up here and you create an adjustment layer, it attaches the adjustment to the layer itself. But when you come here and create an adjustment from it, it creates what we call an adjustment layer. All right. Okay, so I think that's it for this video, and do well to practice with the images I uploaded yesterday. Okay, I uploaded some images yesterday. In fact, I'm going to upload these other images here. All of these images here. Where are they? Let me see. Yeah, so one of these images here, I think I'll upload them again and you guys can get to work on them. So let's just quickly do one last thing. And so if I drag and drop this guy here, the same thing, you can play around with this one. Okay, so now for your assignment, except this, but your assignment is going to be this. So let's just leave this here. So pay attention to the assignment. Okay, oh, that's still going. Okay, let's just drag and drop this. So the first thing I want you to do is this. So we have this guy here, right? I want you to change the color. I want you to make him look like an alien. Okay, so change the color of his skin to green. Right. So from that previous design, for those who did the assignment of day 8, which is the day before this day, this one. Okay. So from your design you've done this one, I want you to change the color of his face here to green. Of his skin rather, not of his face, of his skin to green. Okay. Yeah, so that's your assignment. And is there another thing? No, so if you have a question, do well to let me know, and see you guys in the next video, where we'll continue talking about adjustments and see some other nice stuff we can get done with adjustments. Alright, and I think that's it for today, and see you guys in the next one.